What if the reason you feel lost isn't because you don't know what to do, but because nothing you're doing actually means anything to you? Not deeply. Not enough to wake you up with energy. Not enough to keep you going when things get hard. Think about that for a second. You're busy. You have things to do. You're moving, technically. But inside, it feels like you're going nowhere, like you're just existing. Be honest. Does this feel familiar? You wake up, check your phone, go through your day, work, scroll, eat, sleep, repeat. And somewhere in between all that, there's this quiet question you try to ignore. What am I even doing with my life? It doesn't scream. It whispers, late at night, in moments of silence, when you're alone with your thoughts. And you push it away because you don't have an answer, and that's uncomfortable. So you distract yourself. More content, more noise, more things to fill the space. But this is where things get real, because the feeling doesn't go away. It just waits. And slowly, it turns into something heavier. Not sadness exactly, more like emptiness. Like you're doing everything you're supposed to do, but none of it feels right. And that's when it hits you. Maybe the problem isn't your life. Maybe the problem is your lack of direction. Now here's the part nobody tells you. You can have a good life on paper and still feel completely lost. You can have a job, friends, opportunities, and still feel like something is missing. Because purpose isn't about what you have. It's about why you're doing it. And when that why is missing, everything starts to feel meaningless, even the good parts. So you start questioning yourself. Why can't I just be happy? Why does everything feel so empty? What's wrong with me? Let me stop you right there. Nothing is wrong with you. You're just living without a clear purpose. And without purpose, life feels random. Like you're reacting instead of choosing. Like you're drifting instead of directing. And drifting feels safe at first. No pressure, no big decisions, just go with the flow. But over time, it becomes dangerous. Because you wake up one day and realize you've been moving, but not progressing. Busy, but not fulfilled. Alive, but not really living. Now here's a question most people avoid. If nothing changed in your life, would you actually be okay with that? Same routine, same habits, same direction, or lack of it. 5 years from now, 10. Does that feel right? Or does something inside you say, no, this can't be it? That feeling? That's not anxiety. That's awareness. And it's trying to tell you something important. You're meant for more. Not more success, not more money, more meaning. But here's where things get complicated. Because the moment you start thinking about purpose, your mind does something tricky. It says, you need to find it. Like it's hidden somewhere. Like there's one perfect answer, and you just haven't discovered it yet. So you start searching, watching videos, reading books, overthinking everything. What am I passionate about? What's my calling? What if I choose the wrong thing? And suddenly, finding purpose becomes another source of pressure, another thing you feel behind on, another reason to feel stuck. So instead of moving forward, you freeze, waiting for clarity, waiting for certainty, waiting for some big moment where everything makes sense. But here's the truth that changes everything. Purpose isn't something you find. It's something you build. Yeah,
That's where the shift begins. Because if you keep waiting to discover your purpose, you'll stay stuck forever. But if you start creating it, everything changes. Now wait till you hear this. The reason you feel lost isn't because you don't have a purpose. It's because you're not committing to anything long enough for it to become one. Think about it. You try something, get unsure, pull back. Start something else, doubt it, leave again, over and over. And every time you leave too early, you reset the process. So nothing ever grows. Nothing ever becomes meaningful. Because meaning takes time, and commitment, and patience. But your mind? It wants certainty first. And that's the trap. Because certainty only comes after you commit, not before. So now you're stuck in this loop. You don't commit because you're unsure. And you're unsure because you never commit. And that's exhausting. But this is where things change. Because once you see this pattern, you realize something powerful. You don't need a perfect purpose. You need a direction. Something to move toward. Something to care about. Enough to stay. And that's the beginning. Not clarity. Movement. So the real question becomes, how do you choose a direction when you don't feel certain? And more importantly, how do you stick with it long enough for it to actually mean something? Because once you figure that out, you stop drifting and start living.
And this is where everything comes together. The feeling of being lost was never the real problem. It was the signal that your life needed direction, not perfection, not instant clarity, just direction. And once you started moving, even a little, something inside you began to change. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. You started feeling different, more aware, more intentional, like your days weren't just happening to you anymore. You were shaping them. But here's the part nobody talks about. Moments where you feel like you're going backwards. That emptiness, that confusion. And when that happens, it's easy to think, maybe this isn't it. Maybe I chose wrong. Maybe I'm still lost. But wait, this next part changes everything. Those moments, they're not signs that you're off track. They're signs that you're growing. Because when you start living with purpose, you stop numbing yourself. You stop distracting yourself. You feel more. And that includes discomfort, uncertainty, fear, but also clarity, focus, meaning. So the goal isn't to eliminate those difficult feelings. The goal is to understand them, to not run from them, to not let them control you. Because now, you're different. You're not reacting anymore. You're choosing. And that's power. Real power. Now think about who you were at the beginning of this. Someone drifting, someone unsure, someone asking, what am I even doing with my life? And look at you now. You understand the problem. You see the pattern. You know the truth. Purpose isn't something you wait for. It's something you build. And you don't build it in one big moment. You build it in small, consistent choices. Every day. Choosing direction over distraction. Choosing meaning over comfort. Choosing growth over avoidance. Let me ask you something. Which version of you feels more real? The one who waits or the one who builds? Don't answer quickly. Sit with it. Because your answer, that's your direction. And once you have that, everything else starts aligning, slowly but surely. Now here's something most people won't admit. Living without purpose is easier. Less responsibility, less pressure. You can blame circumstances, blame confusion, blame not knowing. But living with purpose, that requires ownership. It requires you to show up, even when you don't feel like it. especially when you don't feel like it. And yeah, that's hard, but it's also what makes life feel real, because nothing meaningful comes from comfort. It comes from commitment, from showing up again and again and again, even when it's boring, even when it's slow, even when no one is watching. That's where purpose is built, not in motivation, in discipline. And here's the irony. The more you live with purpose, the less you actually need motivation. Because you're not relying on feelings anymore. You're relying on direction. And direction doesn't change every day. Feelings do. That's why this works. Now imagine your life 6 months from now, if you actually follow through. Not perfectly, but consistently. Waking up with intention, moving towards something that matters, making decisions based on direction, not mood. How would that feel? Different, right? Lighter, clearer, more yours. And here's the truth. That version of your life, it's not far away. It's built in the choices you make today, right now. So don't overcomplicate this. You don't need to figure out your entire life. You just need to choose your next step and commit to it, fully, without constantly looking for an escape. Because the moment you stop escaping, you start becoming. Becoming someone who knows where they're going. Becoming someone who trusts themselves. Becoming someone who doesn't feel lost anymore, because they're actively creating their path. And yeah, you'll still have questions. You'll still have doubts. But you won't feel stuck, because you'll be moving. And movement creates meaning. Always. So if there's one thing to take from all of this, it's this. You're not lost. You're just uncommitted. And the moment you decide to commit to a direction, to growth, to yourself, everything starts to change. Not instantly, but inevitably. And maybe that's what you needed to hear. Not a perfect plan, not a magical answer, just the truth. That you have more control than you think, and more potential than you've been using. So don't wait for clarity, create it. Don't wait for purpose, build it. And don't wait for your life to feel meaningful, make it meaningful, starting now. If this made something click inside you, don't ignore that, because that feeling, that's the beginning of something real. Not perfect, but real. And sometimes, that's all you need.